Hello and welcome to this Wednesday edition of the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. You can follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Chris Belcher 24. The show is at PBW Podcast. Make sure you follow us, like, subscribe, comment. We love your feedback, all of those things. Welcome to the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. If this is your first time, thank you for joining us. Whether you are listening on a traditional audio format, whether you're listening on Sportnarium Radio, or whether you are watching our smiling faces on bodyslam.net's YouTube channel, thank you for stumbling upon the show. We hope that you will stick around. We have got a fantastic show planned for you. Enough chit chat. Let's get down to it. I want to introduce you to the guys. Yes, I said guys because we have a surprise for all of you regular listeners. First up, my normal Wednesday co-host, the young buck. Ladies and gentlemen, the indie darling, Andy York in the house. What's up, man? How are you?
Oh, not much. Just another fun week of wrestling and, excited to talk about it.
Man, there's so much. Man, I just feel like there's always so much. Here recently, there's just so much to get to and so little time to do that.
There really is.
Well, we're going to have even littler time this week because, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been around with us before, you know that the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast has a tendency to go down a rabbit hole or two. And, ladies and gentlemen, a third co-host, someone that the bodyslam.net family met last week on our Flashback Friday episode. Yes, he is here in the flesh. He is the king of all rabbit holes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Old School is here for the first time in season 3. My brother from another mother, Jared Justice. What's up, man? How's it going?
How's it going, fellas?
Well, we are excited that you are joining us. This will be a fresh perspective, ladies and gentlemen, one you certainly don't want to
miss. New paint of coat.
New paint of coat, as Bruce Pritchard would say. That's exactly right. All right. For those of you, again, who are just now joining us, thank you for finding our show, whether you found it on Sportnarium, whether you found it on Body Slam, whether you found it on a traditional audio format. Hit that subscribe button. Stick around. We got new episodes every Monday and Wednesday, and exclusive to bodyslam.net's YouTube channel, Friday shows. So some Flashback Friday episodes. We'll get to that later on in the show. Let's get cracking, guys. Beyond the Federation is where we always start. Of course, that is AEW. Lots of AEW stuff this week, Andy. And one of the things that, of course, I want to get Jared's perspective on this too, because this is his first time on here on season 3 talking about AEW. But Andy, we have talked extensively over the last, I guess it's probably been 2 months, really, about MJF's promos and how we just don't know when TNT HR is going to call up Tony Khan and say, hey, shut it down, man. That's a little bit too far. But he hit the nail on the head again this week with all the man, when does it end? I mean, I guess it, like you said last week, it doesn't end because he's so good and he's so captivating. You just want to know what he's going to say next.
Yeah, I kind of hope it never ends, honestly. Like, it's fun to watch because of the aspect, like, you never know what he's going to say. You never know what's going to come out of his mouth, whether you're going to be offended by it, triggered by it, you're going to laugh at it, you're going to do all three at one time, which he's made a lot of people do before. It's a charismatic thing, and I don't really know. It's something that we haven't seen in pro wrestling in a long time. To have this kind of guy that is very loose and does whatever he wants, says whatever he wants, all of those different things. So I kind of hope it never ends. I kind of hope he, I don't want him to ramp it up even more because, I don't know if he can, but if I don't want to, put the challenge out there to see if he can.
Don't challenge that guy because he will. That's for sure. Jared, I find it really interesting. I definitely want to get your take on his promos, but just to add on to that, I find it so interesting that AEW doesn't necessarily have a heel commentator. The reason I bring that up is, of course, the first guy I think of, and I know you do too, is Bobby the Brain Heenan. Bobby Heenan always sided with the heels, and he was always taken up for Ric Flair and whoever, no matter what they did.
It's not fair to Flair.
It's not fair to Flair. That's exactly right. But can you imagine somebody like Bobby Heenan being on the AEW commentary team and having to take up for MJF and all of these crazy things that he's saying? I mean, can you imagine what that would be like?
I mean, I guess it really couldn't be, as far as political correctness goes, it couldn't be any worse than what MJF is doing. I mean, he's saying things that, me and you, Chris, we're used to the Attitude Era, and I'm sure a lot of fans out there are too. And back then, they would say things, and you're just like, that was a little much. But now, everybody gets butthurt over anything and everything. Right. And so you have MJF kind of saying these things that were commonplace back then, but now it's like, yeah, he did say that. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know how that even the people above TNT, like the network, how they're not like, censor this man immediately.
I mean, like in the Attitude Era, like you said, it was just another Monday. Right. Everything that he's saying, but here it's like, you said it, man, political correctness and stuff like that. You really got to toe the line. And MJF is just
does not.
No, not at all. But I think it's interesting. Him and Darby Allin, it was a really cool segment where Darby came out of the crowd. You had Sting and all that kind of stuff. Andy, which way do you see this one going? Of course, we got Full Gear coming up. So next week, we're going to be here previewing all of Full Gear. But where do you kind of see this one going?
I honestly don't know. This is one of the ones that I think it's 50-50. Like, you could flip a coin and make a prediction, and you're probably going to be right or wrong. I think they may give it to Darby. I think it's not going to be a one-off match. I think they're going to kind of continue forward. And I wouldn't be surprised if they give this one to Darby. That kind of gives maybe a little more tension between MJF and Wardlow. Maybe that leads more into it. And I kind of see Darby getting the win here to progress that story. But overall, I think you probably will see MJF win the feud because honestly, I think he's the first challenger for Hangman right after he wins the title at Full Gear. I honestly think they're going to build MJF up to that point once they kind of run through the Hangman Kenny matches, which I'm sure we'll get more than just one of that as well.
See, and Jared, I'll let you add to that too. I don't think he's the first one for Hangman after Kenny. I think he's the last one. I think he's the one to beat Hangman. So I think that yes, you're right. Ultimately, MJF wins this feud with Darby, and then maybe he has another feud similar to this. You give Hangman like a 6-month run or whatever. I think he's the guy to dethrone Hangman. Jared, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I think that MJF is definitely what this company is building towards. I think they see it, they know it. So often people say, that they compare this person to Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart or Stone Cold, almost ad nauseum. But the last time that I remember anybody being that good and never messing up, I mean, he never misses a beat, is Shawn Michaels in the Attitude Era. I mean, all the crazy things that he did. I mean, he didn't stutter. He didn't stumble. It just flowed. And it's the same way with MJF. So, I mean, this guy's going to be a huge star. He's going to be a babyface like Shawn was at some point. They can't keep him from it.
That's true. That's true. I mean, all you got to do is flip-flop a couple of those words in his promos, and the fans are going to be right behind him. Look what Stone Cold did. Stone Cold was talking about how you put the S in front of Hitman. That's exactly what I think about Bret Hart. And that was supposed to be one of the most cruel things you could say, but people loved it.
I loved it.
It's great. Absolutely. And yes, for those of you who are out there listening, I just compared MJF to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Jared just compared him to Shawn Michaels. The kid's like 24 years old, and he's the future of the wrestling business. There is not a wrestling fan out there that could convince me otherwise.
And I think his next feud, more than likely, they have to do him versus CM Punk at some point.
Sure they do.
Especially before he goes after the title. I think Punk versus MJF to set up. MJF being the first one to beat CM Punk in AEW would give him more of an elevation. Even though if he loses the Punk, I still think he's the guy that's probably going to take the company even further in the next year or so. But I think that's... After this Darby Allin feud, I would not be shocked if they threw Punk and MJF together.
And I think that's great. I think that's a great way to set up MJF for Hangman, is to be the first guy to beat Punk. Now, could he beat Punk and then Punk get his win back on the way to Hangman? Sure, he could.
Yeah.
But you get that one win over Punk, and then that's like that. You're
set.
You have the rocket strapped to you, brother.
Yeah.
Speaking of CM Punk, Jared, we saw CM Punk versus Bobby Fish, your favorite Undisputed Era member.
How much fish could Bobby Fish fry? For Bobby Fish could fry fish.
That is the only thing Matt Riddle has ever done that I can stand. I'm just saying.
You can't stand him riding in on a camel?
No, him riding in on a camel was awful. So bad. Oh my gosh. Anyway, CM Punk and Bobby Fish, Jared, I thought it was fantastic, man. I thought it was Bobby Fish continues to prove, at least in AEW, he's had only four. Sammy Guevara, Bryan Danielson, Andy, who was the third guy he wrestled? Some guy that he squashed.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
It doesn't matter. And then CM Punk. So Bobby Fish is, Jared, continuing to show, I think, why he was the most underrated member of Undisputed Era, why he didn't get as much love as the rest of the guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's really, really good, which is, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise, but as far as in singles action, it is a surprise. I mean, this guy shines now that he's been given the spotlight, and who would have really thought that? And their presentation of him so far, I think, has been really good. Like where he smiles and he's got like the fish shark teeth type deal going on. I mean, he's really good. He's got a good presentation. I mean, I think this guy, could make him like a lower level top card, lower level heel at some point.
Andy, what? Of course, you were high on the match, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and I think Bully Ray even said it. I mean, I've started to agree with him even more now watching him in AEW. It's weird to say, but it feels like the Undisputed Era, him being involved in the Undisputed Era, really held him back in NXT. Which is, looking at it from the perspective that we have now, is very. If we said that 2 years ago, I would have been thrown out of here and kicked off Twitter and everything else. But he's coming to his own. He doesn't have the weight of trying to follow Adam Cole and Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly. He's able to do his own thing again. Yep. And he's absolutely killing it. I think he is like the perfect mid-card heel that probably at some point could challenge for the AEW championship, and it wouldn't just be out of nowhere and surprising it, but it would actually fit and make sense.
I think he's a guy that could be a stable, like you said, mid-carder, but could really hold on to that TNT title for a while and really be a guy that could showcase that title and bring up some young talent as a heel and really put them over.
Yeah.
So the only real heel, I'm not counting Brody Lee because that run was very short, but the only real heel that we've seen TNT champion has been Miro, and he's just killing people. So if you let Bobby Fish be TNT champion, then you have a chance to elevate some baby faces, and Bobby Fish can still get his win.
Yep.
So I think that's a good spot for him. Let's move over to Rampage, because Rampage had a hard-hitting first match. Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston. Those two guys just beat the snot out of each other. And Andy, I want to throw to you first, because we were texted after we hit stop on the record last week. Sorry. And we did not talk about Lance Archer and his moonsault spot where he landed on his head and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think, and this is just me speculating, I haven't heard anything, nothing to go off of except my crazy brain. Do you think Archer was supposed to win that match and they called an audible, or do you think Kingston was going to win the whole time?
I don't know. I honestly think it could have gone either way. I think from a storyline perspective, because you got to remember they did the whole Lance Archer and I forget his name now, and I freaked out when he showed up at your house.
Minoko.
Yeah, Suzuki.
Oh yeah,
Suzuki. When Archer They
it's
did
a
the whole,
Japanese name. I'm going to botch it. Okay.
All right, Conrad Thompson.
but they did the whole Suzuki and Archer versus Kingston and Moxley, and so I think they were definitely playing off of that in this match. But
okay.
I think Eddie going over was definitely the right choice, especially with the match that we got between him and Bryan Danielson, because it was stiff and it was hard hitting and it was absolutely beautiful to watch. I love the fact that with Bryan Danielson, and he even did this in his later WWE run after he came back from retirement, he's so good at selling that you don't know if he's selling at times.
Sure.
And I think that's like the perfect thing for him right now. And his chest, I don't know, you just barely look at the guy's chest and it turns blood red. And so Eddie Kingston was beating the brakes off his chest, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Jared, what's your thoughts? You were shaking your head when I was posing that question.
Oh, well, several thoughts. I mean, this is one of the best matches I've seen anywhere in a long time.
This is probably the best Eddie Kingston match that I've seen. I
loved it. But you all were talking, and I do think that that Eddie was supposed to win. The only thing that would make me even question it was you read about how mad that Lance got backstage because the ref wouldn't let him continue. But at the same time, I mean, they kind of did a roll up. They still could have done even the old Stone Cold and Owen Hart type spot, and Lance Archer could have still rolled 80 up if he was absolutely supposed to win. Right. But just kind of the way it happened, and like he was saying, the things that it set up, I do think that Eddie was supposed to win. But man, it was a heck of a match.
It was.
Loved it.
I just want not that Archer would have beaten Danielson or anything like that. Would have been a bigger heel for Danielson to climb. But I just wonder with Archer and when are they going to push this guy? You know what I mean? Like, he's got the look. He clearly is over with the fans. He's clearly has the athleticism. And the guy was 98% of the way from pulling off a moonsault. He's like, what, 6'7"? I mean, the dude has it. Yeah. So when is going to be his shot? I guess that's kind of where my mindset was like, maybe this could have been the rub to get him at least to the Eliminator Tournament finals. But then, of course, you've got Danielson. So I don't know. Well, Andy, when's the rub for this guy?
I don't know. I mean, he could be someone that Hangman Page fights at some point during his title run, or I love how we're just assuming Hangman's going to win, which means he more than likely won't. But
oh no, he's winning.
He better win.
If he does not win, if he does not win, like I have no idea. I just don't know what AEW is doing.
But I think Lance Archer is like a valuable challenger to whoever is the AEW champion. Sure. And so I think they definitely could put him there. I honestly think that they have some story stuff that they're going through right now that they're trying, like, once they get through it, they're probably going to start building up some of these younger guys as well. Because I mean, Darby hasn't had a world championship match yet. MJF hasn't had one. I don't think he may have had one, but
he had one against Moxley.
Yeah. And technically, I mean, Moxley used the illegal move to win. Blah blah blah. So he technically,
right,
is not been
owed
beaten.
A shot.
Right. So there's still a lot of guys that I think are owed shots before Lance Archer, but I think his time is definitely coming within the next year or so.
I think.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't win, then it could be as bad as whenever Sting didn't beat Hogan at Starrcade. I mean, would you think it would be that bad, Chris?
We need a technical difficulty sign to pop up.
Would it be that big of a mess up? I mean, would it, Chris?
Okay.
Oh no.
So for those of you who out there,
it's like a little wind-up doll. Turn it loose.
For those of you out there who do not know, if you're new to the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, the Sting versus Hollywood Hogan Starrcade 97 match. Apparently, and I didn't know this until about a month or so ago. I think that's about right. Apparently, that's my hot button. Apparently, when you bring that up, I get upset.
Your face was turning lava red. Okay, as you had your head in your hand, your face was like a siren. It was so red.
So Jared and I legit were having a phone conversation one day. We were just talking about wrestling, whatever. All of a sudden, Starrcade 97 gets brought up, and I literally started yelling at Jared on the phone. And after a minute, I was like, why am I so mad? Why am I yelling?
Why am I so mad at Jared? I don't know.
So, for those of you in Twitter land, at Chris Belcher 24, you can send your tweets. Get me fired up about Starrcade 97. That anniversary is coming up very, very soon, so I'm sure we're going to talk about it.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh. So anyway,
like a 4-hour episode.
Yeah,
just Chris's part.
Yeah, it'll just be him by himself yelling.
It's
Shut up! He'll be talking to himself. Shut up! No, I'm not shutting up.
Oh Lord! All right, let's try to get the train back on the tracks. See, this is why we brought Jared into this episode. I told y'all we were gonna get off the rails and go down rabbit holes. Here we are. All right, if you are just now checking us out, welcome to the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. We are just having a blast talking about wrestling. We're just wrestling fans. This is our platform to talk about our favorite form of sports entertainment, the only form of sports entertainment to my knowledge. But my name is Chris Belcher. We drop new shows every Monday and Wednesday, and for you bodyslam.net YouTube subscribers on Fridays as well. So don't miss Flashback Friday episodes, current stuff on Wednesdays, and of course, old school stuff coming on Mondays. And we'll give you the rundown of what is coming next week as well. My co-host, Mr. Andy York, my brother from another Jared, my brother.
Minoko. Get Minoko out here.
Minoku, Sting, Hogan, Bischoff. I don't even care. This is what happens when you get on this podcast. I can't talk. Andy York is here. Jared Justice is here. We are trying to have a conversation about wrestling. Let's move on to the WWE. Andy, one thing that we found out last week after we recorded is, I think it was either right when we were recording or shortly after, we did not get to cover this, is the release of SmackDown ring announcer Greg Hamilton. And we soon found out after that that it was a mutual parting between the two. Greg Hamilton was very appreciative of his time with WWE, but he said in his social media post he had to get away for some mental health issues, some mental health restoration. So obviously thoughts and prayers go out to Greg and his family. I know there was some while back that he had tweeted something out about he was struggling because his wife had COVID, or I may not have all the details right about that, but this has not been just a short decision, a short, you know what I mean? I can't even find the words. Jared's got me all flustered. But Andy, you know what I mean? Like this has been a long time coming for Greg.
Yeah, and the timing of it seems a little off with the whole lawsuit thing that he was going through with a rap group that are big wrestling fans and have used some of their stuff in the past, and so there's a lot of allegations and stuff that was going around. But I just the most important thing is that everybody stays happy or stays healthy and happy, and can kind of continue on with what they're doing and be happy in what they're doing. And
sure,
if that was an issue for him, if that was hard for him, then all to him and power to him, and good for him to realize that and take a break and step away for a little bit. And so I hope he finds his passion again. I hope he finds what he's looking for, and that things can kind of work out for him.
Sure. Jared, anything to add about Greg Hamilton and his tenure on SmackDown and just how all this went down?
I honestly didn't know who Greg Hamilton was until this happened. But
fair enough.
No, yeah, I didn't. Sorry, but I don't know. I've anytime somebody gets released or let go or leaves or whatever the case is nowadays, there's always a mixed bag usually about what happened. And so it sounds like it was a mutual parting of the ways. So we'll go with that. I hope everybody is happy with the outcome. So.
Well, let's move on to something that's a little more fun to talk about. And that is, I can't wait to get Jared's take on this. That is the coronation of King Woods and the knighting of Sir Kofi Kingston. This now new turn of events, new layer peeled back to this New Day story. Jared, how do you feel about all this?
New Day on a mission, huh? I mean, it is what it is. You know, what's his name? Not Kofi, but the other guy.
Xavier Woods.
Xavier. He's always wanted to be king of the ring and went on about how awesome he thinks it is, and they let him have it. So, I mean, good for him. You know, God bless him.
Andy, let me just say, the New Day has always gotten under my skin, but I love this. I think this is fantastic. I really do. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, it's a blast. I think Woods is going to have the most fun with this because it's not. I mean, obviously, the King of the Ring is not what it used to be. It means basically absolutely nothing now,
Sure.
which is a shame because I would love if they kind of brought back. You know, if you win the King of the Ring, you get the challenge for a championship, whatever championship, if it's a mid card or world title, whatever. Apparently, he can just make matches on SmackDown now. Which, if they make him the new Adam Pearce as King Woods, then that's
That's
absolutely
hilarious.
perfect.
I love it.
But I enjoyed the entire segment. I love that the Usos come out. Every time we get the New Day versus the Usos, it's just I don't care what the feud is. The matches are going to be amazing. So
Took the words right out of my mouth, man.
So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to do that. Plus, I love the fact, kind of jumping, but I love the fact that they like Big E hasn't completely forgot about the New Day, and like even on Raw when Seth Rollins was cutting his promo, he was like still defending them and stepping up for him. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But yeah, I think King Woods is going to have the most fun with this new gimmick, more probably than anybody would.
I couldn't wait till Big E goes heel and squashes both of them like bugs.
Well, it might happen.
I don't think it will.
It might, but no, Andy, I'm with you. I get it. Like the King of the Ring used to have such prestige. Obviously the one that I think of that brought it to prestige, Jared, is Owen Hart. He became the King of Hearts. He got his, that was right in the middle of his feud with Brett. So like Andy said, he got his title shot. And after that, Owen was always known as the King of Hearts. He always incorporated King of the Ring somehow into his gimmick. So I think King Woods has the opportunity to be able to do that too and to really carry on that King of the Ring legacy. Andy mentioned the Usos. Jared, I have to get your take on this entire feud, debacle, issues, whatever it is between Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, and Brock Lesnar. The hits just keep on coming. Like this past week, Kayla Braxton is obviously infamous. I love that they keep incorporating her and Paul Heyman together. I think it's fantastic. But she always gets Paul Heyman fired up. And this week he cut this passionate promo about Brock Lesnar and all this stuff. And then he says, well, if Brock Lesnar thought that, or if Brock Lesnar felt that way, I don't know how Brock Lesnar feels. Jared, I was speculative about how quickly I felt like they were jumping into this, but it's great for them to be able to continue this whole thing without Brock Lesnar even here.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's what makes Paul Heyman so great, is he doesn't need anybody else. He doesn't need any of them, even Kayla. Right. He can continue this storyline just doing promos for the next year, and nobody would probably get tired of them.
Right.
I mean, I love the whole thing. And who would have thought? I mean, you remember whenever we were getting ready to go into WrestleMania, and what was the match that we were just like, we thought we knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
We didn't want to see it.
Yep.
And we thought we never wanted to see it again.
Right.
And now this is the best thing that's come along since sliced bread. I mean, all these guys, they work so good together. And I can't wait to see how it turns out. I mean, what's your all's thoughts? How is this going to turn out? Who's Paul Heyman with?
I think at the end of the day, he'll probably stick with Roman because I don't think Brock's sticking around. And I think they want to keep Paul on TV. So I think they're definitely going to play this up. I think how Roman will more than likely win at WrestleMania or whenever they face each other again is the fact that he thinks he has Paul Heyman in the background on his side. And then Paul kind of shows his true allegiance to Roman and they kind of go forward through that. But it also wouldn't surprise me if I just don't think Paul aligning with Brock and Brock still losing would make sense. And I don't think they're going to take the title off Roman, honestly, for another year or so. So I don't see that happening either.
don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I'm still on the fence about will they try to turn Roman babyface? Like, because WWE has a tendency to turn somebody babyface when they're the
Ruin
hottest heel in
everything?
the company. Well, not ruin
Yeah.
everything, but listen, Shawn Michaels was the hottest heel in the company in 1995, and they turned him babyface, and it was the greatest thing they ever did. So
That was 95.
it was 95. That's correct. Anyway, so all that to say, I feel like if Roman does turn, then obviously Paul's not going to be there. So I don't know.
I just think that honestly, I think they're going to keep Roman heel until he faces The Rock. I mean, you have to. That match is, as long as that match is on the table, I think you're going to have Roman continue as this character. And obviously, I don't think it's going to happen this year. Probably more than likely happen at Hollywood next year.
Right.
And so as long as they keep Roman steady in what he's doing, I think they'll keep him in this position as this character. And then maybe after he beats The Rock, maybe after that match is when you start to see a different side of Roman, him starting to turn more into a babyface.
Sure.
And then if they do it right, then being the guy that they wanted him to be 4 or 5 years ago.
True. Yeah. All right. Let's move over to Monday Night Raw, guys. And man, I know we have talked ad nauseum about how Raw is sometimes difficult to get through. It's 3 hours, yada, yada, yada. Man, Raw was full of some good wrestling this week. Like, not just segments, not just promos. Obviously, we're going to talk about the big matches, the Becky and Bianca and the Big E and KO. But, I mean, even like Rey Mysterio and Austin Theory, Street Profits and Ziggler and Rude, Finn Balor and Chad Gable, just, Andy, some really good wrestling on Monday Night Raw this week.
Yeah, I think the only bad match of the night you could say was the women's tag match.
I agree.
And it wasn't bad. It was just your standard match, but everything else felt different. And I think that's the best part about the draft so far is that Monday Night Raw, obviously since last week when the new season premiere or whatever that they called it, everything is starting to feel different and is starting to feel fresh again. So I think this is definitely playing into it. Finn Balor versus Chad Gable was an absolutely amazing match.
So
Damian
good.
Priest versus T-Bar was so much fun to watch.
I didn't even mention that one. Yeah.
Yeah. The main event I think the main event probably suffered a little because of how good the other matches were on the card. And I mean, the opening match was the best way you could have started Monday Night Raw off. So I think as long as they don't continue to do like 45-minute promos to start Raw, but you start off maybe with like a match every once in a while that's really good to get the crowd hot. Then the rest of the show feels and flows a little bit better.
And Jared, especially to start it with Bianca versus Becky for the Raw Women's title, going 3 segments, no promos to start, no nothing, just right into it, man. And the match that a lot of people thought we should have seen at SummerSlam. Obviously, we got it at what was that pay-per-view after SummerSlam?
Extreme Rules.
Yes, Extreme Rules. We saw the match Extreme Rules. It was really good. Obviously, Sasha caused the ending of that match, but we got a somewhat clean finish on Monday Night Raw. Jared, these 2 ladies going at it, man, I thought it was really, really good and a great way to kick off Raw.
Yeah, I thought it was a great match. And kind of to what you all were saying, I haven't watched WWE in a while, basically since we went to SummerSlam. And I've mainly been watching AEW. But to see them open with such a good match and for it to go as long as it did and to be as good as it was gives me hope that maybe AEW isn't competition yet. But is it enough to scare Vince McMahon to where he's at least taking notice of something that's going on outside of his bubble? Because that's when WWE will get good again. Right. And so if we're seeing little changes, and the only match I watched was the opener, and I really wanted to watch some more. But until I kind of heard how good the show was, I had no plans of watching any of it.
Sure.
So, but it was an awesome match.
Well, and Andy, you mentioned the main event as well might have suffered from the opening match. I thought it was great. The crowd is still clearly behind Becky, but then you go to the main event, and then you got 2 big fan favorites like Big E and KO. Number one, Jared, Mr. Kevin Owens doppelganger there. I love to see Kevin Owens back in the main event picture. He had a short run against Roman Reigns earlier this year that might not have gone as some would have planned, but man, ever since the Universal title debacle where he had a great run and then he ended up having to drop it to Goldberg, I felt like he's been pushed to the wayside, man, and it's really good to see him in some big time matches again. Don't you think?
Andy?
Jared?
Me? Okay. Kevin Owens is awesome. KO. I heard of him back whenever he was still Steen and watched some of his matches before he came to WWE. And I thought that he was a more raw version of himself back then. Mm-hmm. And I've always wanted to see him get to that point in WWE. And I'm hoping that this will start them off and heating this guy back up and really giving him at least one more run, maybe with the title or in the main event picture going for the title before his contract expires, which I think is coming up fairly soon.
Yep.
But yeah, man, especially if he re-signs, which if he's smart, I don't think he will right now. But I would love to see him get elevated back toward the top. I mean, this guy just doesn't get old. Everything he does, it's kind of like almost a little slight version of Chris Jericho. He got some Jericho dust sprinkled on him working with him back in the day.
He did. Yep.
So what he touches kind of turns to gold in a way.
Yep.
And I've never seen any matches that I've just been like, oh, Kevin Owens is on, and flip the channel. So I love it.
That's true. Andy?
Yeah, I think part of this, I think, might be what they, not to the extent that they did with Dean Ambrose, but I think this might be Kevin Owens' like farewell tour in WWE. And I think they're going to try to put him in the main event scene, maybe to be like, hey, if you re-sign, then we'll put you in the main event scene. And then when people sign, they're like, oh, we got you. Now you go back to the mid card. So I think honestly, this could be like him transitioning out. I love the fact that he dropped that in his promo as saying whether it's the next 3 months or 3 years, because I think his contract's up in February.
It is, 3 months.
And so I love the fact that he mentioned that. I love the fact that Big E mentioned Mount Rushmore, which was his stable with the Young Bucks and Adam Cole before he went to WWE. So I love that those little seeds that they were planting there. So I don't know if them planting those seeds, or he may have already re-signed, told him he might want to re-sign, or if he just kind of did what he wanted to do because he's leaving anyway. But I think we're going to get a Big E versus Kevin Owens for the WWE Championship at some point before he leaves. But yeah, it's good to see him back where he belongs, kind of right in the middle of everything again.
Yep, I definitely agree. All right, one more thing before we put a bow on this week's episode. Jared, I want to throw to you for this because Andy and I have extensively been talking the last couple of weeks about one guy in particular, and he was actually Andy's high spot last week. And that is Seth Rollins. Jared, this dude is on another freaking level. Like this guy, let me just say, coming out of the Monday Night Messiah character, I didn't know what to expect. And if you listen to Seth on the Broken Skull sessions with Stone Cold Steve Austin, he doesn't know what to expect because this character is just fly by the seat of our pants every week. It's wide open. And Jared, everything he is doing is just incredible. I mean, this guy is truly a megastar that I don't think gets enough credit.
Well, you're seeing when Vince McMahon actually puts forth an effort, what can happen. And everybody, me included, whenever he was doing the Monday Night Messiah gimmick, it was getting to the point where he had go away heat with me.
Yep.
And everybody thought Vince McMahon's so out of touch. Look at this character. He wants to do characters. And everybody hated it, but now coming out of that, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, get it there? Now it's all making sense. And it's like this character has been born out of what Seth was before, kind of the crap that we all thought that they gave him. And then now coming out, I think that he's a megastar. It's just when are they going to completely realize that and really let him go all the way to the top yet again?
Let him be champion again.
Right.
That's just me. All right, guys, as we wrap up this week's episode, we always like to hand out our high spots and turd sandwiches, especially since Jared is here, the inventor of the turd sandwich gimmick. The highs and the lows of the wrestling business this week. Andy, I'm going to throw to you. We will go. We'll go. Which way you want to go first?
Let's just do the turd sandwich because
turd sandwich.
Just
first,
get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way. What you got?
So not to throw like shade at anybody, but my turd sandwich of the week has to be the women's tag team division in WWE because it's pointless. It's useless. It's dead. And it was great for the first two title runs. And then after the Iconics lost it, it was just like, okay, this is pointless now. When you have your champions lose every week until they defend the title and then they win, you just throw people together. That doesn't really make sense because why would Carmella tag with Zelina after Zelina kind of turned her back on her during the Queen of the Ring tournament or whatever? Sure. So it doesn't make sense. You cut all your tag teams when you did the draft. You should have just kind of quietly dismissed the belt and nobody would have cared. So sure. I think that right now my turd sandwich has to be the women's tag division.
I'm going to go over to AEW with my turd sandwich. Jared, I'll give you a minute to think about yours.
I've got
you got yours. Go ahead.
So my turd sandwich is going to be maybe where you were going, so I may have just stole your thunder.
That's good.
But it's going to be Brit Baker going up against an extremely ugly woman who I had no clue who she was. And despite what gifts as far as looks goes that God gave this woman, she has mait herself look awful. But anyways, here she comes, straight out of the Halloween store. And she's going against Brit Baker, who normally is awesome. I love Brit Baker. She's just an all-around star. She's another one that's going to be huge. But this match was awful. Let's just go ahead and say it. It was awful. They had the thumbtack spot. How many thumbtacks even stuck in Brit? 5, right. Maybe. And this was just a travesty.
I'll put it to you with this perspective. I didn't even watch that match. So there's that. My turd sandwich was not that. So you did not steal my thunder. But it does come from AEW, and it is the booking of Jon Moxley. I hate Moxley squashing people. I was not happy about his Japan stuff that he had been doing. Suzuki was fine if that's how you want to introduce him, blah, blah, whatever. Yes, Minoko. I didn't like it, and I continue to not like what they're doing with Moxley. Like him squashing Dark Order number 10 in the Eliminator tournament, I just thought it was stupid. Is he going to squash Orange Cassidy coming up this week? Probably not. I don't think he's going to squash him. Jared thinks he's going to squash him. Obviously, I think Moxley wins, and I think we get Moxley versus Danielson in the finals. But I just don't like them booking him to just squash people. I don't know. I don't like it. Oh, well. All right, Andy, I'll throw to you. Your high spot of this week. What you got?
The only one that kind of stuck out to me, but I really enjoyed because he's done it before, and it just seeing the picture of it afterwards made it even more brutal. Darby Allin with the thumbtacks on the skateboard to Wardlow's back was disgusting and painful and absolutely beautiful at the same time. So he showed the pictures. I think he had like 40 something like tack marks in his back. And it was nasty. So that was really fun for me. So that was my high spot.
That's good stuff. Jared, what you got?
So, I could go the easy way out and do the Kingston and, Bryan match, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
Since one thing I love to do is irritate you, I'm going to say my high spot is the booking of Jon Moxley. And let me tell you why before everybody starts rolling their eyes or saying, oh, he's just trying to aggravate Chris. This character that they are creating where he is just destroying people. And he almost has it's almost a version, here we go comparing people again, of Stone Cold back in the day. And this guy comes in, he destroys people. It's like if you mix Stone Cold and the Ultimate Warrior, but took away all the bad of Warrior and just did the part about, destroying people.
Right.
And probably really hurting people in the process. But anyways, I think this is going to be a great gimmick. I think they're going to turn him heel, and I think that this is going to put him in the main event against whomever it is going forward. So I think that his character is going to be really strong and really good regardless of what we're seeing right now.
I can buy that. I don't like it, but I can buy it. Just saying. I could also go the easy way with my high spot, and I could just say the New Day versus the Usos from SmackDown because that was an incredible match. But I'll turn it around. I'll give AEW some props here. My high spot of the week. My high spot of the week is Sammy Guevara versus Ethan Page. That match was so good. It was so good, man. I could watch those two guys wrestle for like 45 minutes, 5 days a week. I mean, it was that good. I am incredibly impressed with what Sammy Guevara has done with the TNT Championship. I think he should have had the title a long time ago, if I'm being honest. I don't want to say he should have been the first champion. He might not have been ready at that point, but this dude is like the perfect TNT champion. And I love what he's been doing recently. I really do. All right. That is going to do it for this week here on the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. We appreciate you joining us, whether you're listening on SportsWire or you're listening wherever you find your podcast, or you're watching us on BodySlam.net's YouTube channel, wherever you're at. Stop what you're doing, hit the subscribe button. That way you get a notification every time we upload a new episode, which is on Mondays, Wednesdays, and for you BodySlam.net YouTubers, on Fridays. This coming Friday, I haven't decided what's coming yet. So just be on the lookout on social media for what's coming on Flashback Friday. If you guys missed our interview this past Monday with Hunter Knott and Rosario Grillo, better known as TSF, do yourself a favor and go watch it. We had a blast with those guys. I know they had a blast too. We're going to have them back on very, very soon. They are the hottest, fastest rising tag team in the industry, and they've only been wrestling for 7 months. Guys, they're the real deal. Go watch this interview. Coming up this Monday, we're going to celebrate 25 years of the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. That's right. It is a history lesson all about The Rock. You don't want to miss that one. It is going, yes, if you smell what we are cooking. So you want to check that out. It's going to be a blast. Again, hit that subscribe button wherever you're at. Jared is at JWJust01. I'm going to flash on the screen. That is on the Instagram. Andy is at Andy_PBWP on Twitter, on all those platforms. Follow him. I am at Chris Belcher 24, and the show is at PBW Podcast. Fellas, I know we hit a lot of stuff very, very quickly. Andy, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, man, just a lot of fun. And, I'm enjoying watching wrestling, which, 2 years ago, I probably wasn't in the same boat. So watching it now and enjoying it, and everything has been consistent for the most part the last couple of weeks. And that's all we ask for as wrestling fans, is not just great every week, but consistent every week. And I think that's what we're finally getting.
Yep, that's exactly right. Jared making his long-awaited return to the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. I know work has gotten in the way for you for quite a while now, but here you are, man. Thanks for hopping back on and bringing your always entertaining opinions to the show.
You're welcome. No, it was great to be back, guys. I had a good time.
It's awesome. All right, for Andy, for Jared, my name's Chris Belcher. Thank you for joining us on the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. We will catch you guys down the road.